today let's edit a video. Now I picked up my little intro video that I made and I'm going to use repeatedly probably through the series, but it goes excruciatingly slow. As you can see, this is something that I made where I took my video maker and I basically took my finger and drawed out Cyclops video across this video. But the first thing I'm going to do is resize it for 16:9. And then what I'm going to do is increase the speed on it. Now, in order to do that, double tap on the video itself. Right here, you can see just how slow it really is. And it's just annoying spelling out that slow, unless I had something super significant to say, which I very rarely do. Now, as the video's going, I'll try to highlight exactly which tab I'm pushing in order to make the changes that we'll be talking about. Now, right here, I'm just taking my finger and scrolling it back and forth to kind of check on the speed to see how it looks if I do speed it up. But before we do anything else, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to trim right off the back end of it, and I'm also going to go into my volume settings, and I'm going to make sure that the gain is turned all the way down. Now, the reason that I turn the gain down on something that already doesn't have any volume on it is sometimes it can compete for the configuration of how the volume is set up throughout the track. All right, the gain's set on 0. Now we can play with the speed. You'll hit down at the bottom where it says Speed and Effects, and you can take the speed and run it as high as 6 times the normal speed. Now, you may not want to do that over the entire track, so you can also split the track. You'll have to make a cut, and on each section of that particular track, after you make the cut, you can make individual adjustments, including the speed. Now, right here, I've got it on 6 power. I hit the playback button, and that'll give you an idea how fast it's actually moving. So it looks pretty good to me. So right now I'm fixing to go back, start it over, and play it through. I'm just scrolling it with my finger. Let me get it right where I want it, and I'll just hit play. Still haven't decided. Right here at the end, I'm going to make one more cut, and I'm going to slow that section down. I took both fingers and expanded the view so it's a little easier to work on. So on the back end of it, I'm going to slow it down to 2 times the regular. So it's running on 2 times and then 6, and then it goes back down to 2. So here's what it looks like when we get ready to actually play it through to see what the timeline is going to look like. Now, I purposely left a little extra length at the end of that last tab. The reason that I did is when I get ready to join it to the next little section of the video, I've got some room to play with transitions and cuts and that kind of stuff. If you cut it off now and you render the video, you don't have it, you can't get it back. The only thing you can do is take a screenshot and expand it that way. But I'd rather just go ahead and have it on the video the way I want. So right now what I'm going to do is set up a couple of frames. I got it set up at the very start of it. You can just push and set a frame, and then you can move it to a different part of the video and expand it or shrink it, move it around however you want, and set another keyframe, and it will slowly move from one keyframe to the other. All right, I got the keyframes in it. Now it's time to start back over and play it through. And as you can see right there, I'm kind of liking the way that looks. Here's from start to finish. I'm just using my fingers again to make sure that the transition looks nice and smooth. To my eye, it looks good. Now I'm going to take another section of the actual first video that I made for this channel, and that's going to be the next thing we insert right here. Now here it comes. It is the gear. If you're watching me on a tablet or a phone, unless you've got a jitterbug, you're set. You've already got everything you need to start on YouTube. Some of the biggest YouTubers out there, they started with nothing but a phone and not a clue how to edit or anything else. All right, now where I kind of pre-trimmed it in the player up there, I'm just shrinking it down, getting about what I think I want, because there's no need dropping this entire clip into the timeline. I've shortened it down some. I pulled it down, dropped it into the timeline. Now I'm going to let it play back, and we'll make our little adjustments to get the cuts exactly where we want it. All right, again, let's start it over and let it play through. Something else that stops people from doing it is the gear. If you're watching me on a tablet or a phone, unless you've got a jitterbug, you're set. You've already got everything you need to start on YouTube. Some of the biggest... All right, I purposely left it a little bit long. We'll come back and clean that up here in a minute. But I've got the little extra length I need on there. I made a cut, and everything past that, I went on and threw it away. Now, I'm going to sit here and scroll through the playhead. I kind of like the way it looks, just a straight jump cut. I might put something else in it here later, But right now, I like the jump cut, which means there's no transition in between clips. And if you'll watch a bunch of motion pictures, you'll notice that they don't use transitions very often. But just for the hell of it, let's click down and put a couple of them in and let you see exactly what it looks like with different transitions. All right, let me point out one of the flaws that you run into with Lumafusion. Right here, it glitched. When I clicked on transitions, instead of seeing the transitions, all it's showing is little black boxes. Now, if you have a newer phone or a newer tablet, you're not going to run into this as much, but depending on how much processing power you have on your particular device, that'll determine whether or not it glitches like this. The only way to get it back to operating right is you're going to have to shut the app down. You don't have to restart your tablet, but go ahead and shut down everything running in the background, and then open the app back up, and it should take you right where you were. And right here it does. It takes us right back to the cut that we used and the little transition we inserted. Now here's what it's supposed to look like on the transitions. Now as a default, it'll put in cross dissolve, but I'll show you a couple of different ones. Right here is one that I use a lot. It's a little cross zoom. And as you tap the transitions on the screen, you'll get an idea of exactly what they'll look like when you actually use them in the video. And Lumafusion is filled with some really cool transitions. On the transitions, you can also expand them and shorten them so that the transition goes faster or slower as you play back through your timeline. But trust me, some of the wild ones like this one right here, it's real easy when you first start to overuse those kind of transitions. Like I say, you can see there are some really, really cool ones, but the main real vibrant transitions, the ones that just jump out at your ass, those are better when you're really cutting from one scene to another. All right, let's let this thing play back. I use the cross zoom and let's see how it looks.
Something else that stops people from doing it is the gear.
Okay, I like that. And like I say, when you get ready to really drastically change the scene on the video, instead of using a jump cut, a transition like this will really catch your eye, and it adds a little professional to the video, especially the ones that zoom in and out like that. For some reason, in my eye, they're just real appealing. Now, there may be some that you like better, but for me, those are the ones that I enjoy. Now, what I did, I went on YouTube and screen recorded some sound effects, and these sound effects I use during the transitions. They're like swishes or whooshes or something like that. But I know from using this repeatedly that there's one little section that has about 5 or 6 very, very short transition noises. Now, right here, I'm going to pick out one that I would like to use. This one right here looks pretty good. That looks about the right time length. So I'm going to cut it, get rid of what I don't need, and I'm going to pick it up and move it right where it's making the transition. All right, I think I got it where I like it. Let's see how it sounds.
Something else that stops people from doing it is the gear. If you're watching me on a tablet or a phone, unless you've got a jitterbug, you're...
Okay, I like that little transition. But what I want to do now is right here at the video where I'm actually speaking, I'm going to make a cut and I'm going to drop the audio track. And what I'll do, you watch right here when I drop the audio track. You just hit it, push the little audio thing, and it'll come down. And at the very first of it, right where I actually start speaking, I'm going to expand the audio track to make sure that it hit a little dead spot. That way it'll make that swoosh noise, it'll go directly into the transition, and it'll work a lot better. Now, what you want to do also is make sure, and by the way, that's called a J cut, where you extend the audio in front of the actual visuals that you're seeing. We'll talk about that a different time. But on the audio track, you want to make sure that you set them both up to either none, or you want to make sure that you prioritize one as the main track. Because if you set something up as the main track, whatever you drop under it, you'll only hear it clearly when the main track cuts out. But right now, I want the swoosh and I want the main track to play at the same volume. All right, here we go.
Something else that stops people from doing it is the gear. If you're watching me on a tablet or a phone, unless you've got a jitterbug, you're set. You've already got everything you need to start on YouTube.
All right, quick pro tip. You will get tired of hearing your own voice the more you edit on a video, but you do get used to it. Now, right here at the very end of that little clip, I'm doing this like it was an actual video I was going to upload to YouTube. So I want the picture to fade out, but I want the volume to stay constant. So right here, I just drop the track. I extended it just a hair past where the picture is going to stop. That way, when you play it back, you'll hear it talking all the way up to the end, even though the actual visuals will fade down. A little more professional looking. It's kind of a little trick that I like to use at the end of my videos. That way they slowly fade out and then the audio stays with it the entire time. All right, now let's say we want to change the little intro part of it. I picked up a clip from my video library and I want to use this as a little intro. Now you can see the audio is also there. I'll probably end up dropping it. And when I do, then I can take and use the audio and the visuals separately. So I want to shorten this down. I want to bring it up to right there where the transition is made. And this is just going to be just a little bit too long. So I want to make sure and cut it right here. Now, if you highlight one track, it'll only cut the one track. But if you don't highlight anything, it'll cut the entire clip. So let me play this back.
Something else that stops people from doing it is the gear. If you're watching me on a tablet or a phone, unless you've got a jitterbug, you're...
Okay, let's try one more playthrough, and then I've got an idea. I think we're going to put that in the video.
Something else that stops people from doing it is the gear. If you're watching...
Okay, this looks like a perfect opportunity to put some B-roll over the top of this video to kind of break it up. That way it's not one static shot. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go on to Google iPad, and then I'll hit images and scroll down till I find an image I like. Now, I like this image of the little iPad minis, so I'll save it to my photos. Now, I also want to get a couple of phones in here, so I'm just going to punch in iPhone colors, let that come up, and pick me out something that's kind of colorful. I kind of like that one, so I'm going to save it to the photos also. Now I'm going to go back into Lumafusion, and those photos will be stored either at the very top or the very bottom of your photo selection, whether you can set it up for either ascending or descending order. I like to have them at the very top. That way I know whatever it was I just used will be at the very top of my photo catalog. Okay, now let's play that little section back and decide exactly where to drop them.
Doing it is the gear. If you're watching me on a tablet or a phone,
all right there we can see on the timeline exactly where I'm saying either a tablet or a phone. Now, a lot of times as you play this back, you can look at the audio clip and you can also look at your own lips moving and you can see precisely where you want it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and resize it, and I think I may play with the colors a little bit. So I went into my colors. I went to hit the contrast and play with it just a little bit and maybe a little more saturation just to make it pop just a little bit more. Kind of like the way that looks. Yeah, I like the way that looks. Now all we have to do is decide exactly where to put it. Now we're going to do the phones the exact same way. I want to put it right over the top of it so it'll go from one directly to the other.
Watching me on a tablet.
Now you can see what I put up there does not line up with what I'm saying, but I want to make sure that it's hitting exactly where I say tablet and phone.
On a tablet or a phone, unless you've got a...
Okay, that looks pretty good, but you can play with them as you want. Now, I want to make sure right here at the end where it stops, I move the bottom layer, the one with the tablet's a little shorter than the other one, and I'll show you why. I'm going to put a transition at the end of the phone. Now, I don't want the transition to be that long, so I'm going to shorten it just a little bit. So when I play it back, as it goes from tablet to phone, it'll fade out.
A tablet or a phone, unless you've got a jitterbug, you're set. You've already got everything you need to start on YouTube.
All right, I like the way that looks. Now, I want to add a little text right there where I'm stuttering on purpose, and I say jitterbug. So I'm just going to go to my text, tap on it, and just write down the word jitterbug. Now, I want to make sure that it's kind of in a fun font. So I'll go back and pick a good font, and I'll pick a color that I think will pop against the screen a little bit. Now, right here, there's a lot of fonts loaded into it. I'm just going to scroll down and find something that looks kind of like cursive, something that was handwritten and not stamped out from a computer. I like the Noteworthy. It comes out really cool, and I use that a lot. And I size it, get it about where I want it size-wise, move it up and down by the position, and I kind of like this. Now, I'm going to take and change the colors up. So I selected the one that's yellow and it has the blue outline, but you could also go in and fine tune the colors. See, I'm moving the sliders back and forth, make that yellow really, really strong. And then on the blue, I'm going to play with it a little bit also. I'm taking all the red and green out, and I want the blue to be just a little bit darker. Right here, you can see what the red looks like. Now that I'm looking at it, I kind of like the red. You can also go to the spectrum and move the little pointer around, and you can pick out anything on there that you want and use it on the timeline. The little spectrum thing is super handy, and I use that a lot. Now, if you want to, where I got the word jitterbug up there, you can also keyframe it. So you can start it smaller, expand it, move it several different times. You can make cuts in it, make it jump up and down as I'm stuttering. You can do a lot with it, but I just wanted to show you how to insert one little piece of text over the main track and see how it looks. All right, let's play it back.
Something else that stops people from doing it is the gear. If you're watching me on a tablet or a phone, unless you've got a jitterbug, you're set. You've already got everything you need to start on YouTube.
All right, I'm liking it. But speaking of keyframes, I think what I'm going to do right here at the very end of the video, I'm going to make a cut, and I'm going to have it slowly grow as it fades out in the keyframes. Now let me move through here. That's where I started. Now where I end it right here, I want it to expand just a little, nothing super drastic, just a little bit of expansion at the very end to kind of give it a little zing.
To start on YouTube.
Just like that. I like the way that looks. I think that'll be a cool way to end the video. Now all we got to do is export it to your photos. Before you put it on YouTube, my recommendation is always export it to your photos. That way you have a master file in case something happens and the app crashes. I've had it happen before, but not in a long time. But just to be safe, I got it just like I want it. So I'm going to export it and try to decide what quality to use. Now, this will be up to you. If you decide to use a super high quality, it's going to take up a lot more space. Now, it's actually showing that it was done in 1080, but I want to export it at 4K. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick the one that it has starred. Basically, that'll kind of give you an idea. You can go higher, but you're probably not going to see the difference. There's no need taking up the extra space. All right, now I've got a lot more of these videos planned. I'm hoping you guys will stick around and check them out. I'm trying to make it as easy as I can without talking down to anybody. Now let's go to the photos and play it back, and I hope to see you back here on the channel.
Something else that stops people from doing it is the gear. If you're watching me on a tablet or a phone, unless you've got a jitterbug, you're set. You've already got everything you need to start on YouTube.